The Galactic Council chamber was always filled with noise. Voices of hundreds of alien races, all arguing, laughing, and competing for power. The Great Hall itself floated in orbit around a dying star, a symbol of authority that stretched across the galaxy. But on this day, something was different. A strange tension hung in the air, though no one could explain why. The humans sat quietly at the far end of the table, listening, watching, their expressions unreadable. For centuries, Earth had been loyal to the Council. They had obeyed every law, paid every debt, and even sent their soldiers to fight in wars that weren't their own. They were known for compassion and patience, for diplomacy and mercy. The galaxy called them the peacemakers, and everyone believed that humans would always forgive, always bend, always stay humble. They were wrong. At the center of the chamber, the council speaker, a towering creature with crystalline skin, slammed his staff against the floor. The sound echoed like thunder. "Order!" he shouted. "We meet today to address the request from the Terran delegation regarding the Arcadian tragedy." He turned toward the humans with a thin smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Ambassador Kale, you may speak." The human stood slowly, his dark uniform reflecting the light from the golden ceiling. He looked tired but composed. "The Terran colony on Arcadia was destroyed last month," he said calmly. 5 billion lives. Men, women, and children, gone. We asked for protection. We received silence. We sent distress calls. No one came. His voice never rose, but every word struck like steel. The colonies of other species were defended by this council. Ours were not. The Terran people demand an explanation. For a moment, there was silence. Then, laughter. One of the alien generals, a reptilian creature with golden armor, leaned forward. "Humans," he hissed, "you build too close to enemy borders. You were warned. Perhaps next time you should listen." More laughter followed, cruel and sharp. Another delegate added, "You should be grateful the council even recognizes your little planet. We cannot waste resources on every weak colony that collapses." The room filled with mocking whispers. Kale didn't move. He simply stood there, staring at them with a calm that felt unnatural. When the laughter died down, he spoke again, softer this time. "You refused to help us, even after we helped you rebuild your own worlds. We sent our doctors to your war zones. We fed your starving colonies. We shared our technology freely. And when we needed you, you turned away." His words echoed across the hall, cold and precise. "You speak of peace, but you only mean peace for yourselves." The council speaker raised a clawed hand impatiently. "Enough, human. You are wasting our time. The council's decision stands. The Terran colony of Arcadia was not a priority. The council is not responsible for your failures." Kale looked at him for a long moment, his eyes filled with something the aliens had never seen before. Not rage, but something colder, heavier. He turned, pressing a small button on his wrist. A tiny light blinked once, green, then faded. "Then Earth withdraws." The words dropped into the silence like a weapon. For a moment, no one understood what he meant. Then the room erupted. "Withdraws?" shouted a delegate. "You can't withdraw," cried another. The council speaker's crystal voice rang out angrily. "You are bound by treaty, by the laws of the council." Kale didn't answer. He simply turned and began to walk toward the exit, his footsteps calm and deliberate. Behind him, the chamber filled with chaos. The speaker shouted for the guards. Others yelled for him to stop. But Kale didn't look back. As the doors closed behind him, the great hall shook slightly, not from movement, but from something else. In the command centers of 100 fleets across the galaxy, alarms began to flash. The Terran fleets that had served the Council for centuries were disappearing from radar one by one. Entire squadrons vanished without trace. Orbital stations that once carried the Terran insignia went dark. Even the communication beacons that linked Earth to the Council shut down instantly. It was as if humanity had vanished in a single breath. Inside the chamber, confusion turned to fear. The Council's command officers shouted orders. "Find them. Reconnect the Terran network. But every attempt failed. The humans had erased themselves completely, taking their technology, their ships, and their knowledge with them. The reptilian general slammed his fist against the table. Impossible. They can't do this. But even as he spoke, his personal data console went dark. The council speaker turned to his aides. What is happening? An assistant, pale and trembling, looked up from her scanner. Sir, every Terran system has gone offline. Their worlds, their colonies, even their trade routes, they're gone. The speaker's voice faltered. Gone? How? We don't know. Then, across the massive view window that showed the endless stars, something flickered. For just a moment, the galaxy seemed to dim. Every light on the map of Terran-controlled space disappeared, replaced by one faint red pulse, then nothing. The aliens stared, frozen, their laughter gone. In the silence, one voice whispered from the back of the room, shaky and afraid. They are gone. No one moved. No one spoke. The council had mocked them, ignored them, and now they realized what they had done. Humanity had not begged for forgiveness. They had not fought for attention. They had simply left. Some of the younger delegates tried to comfort themselves with logic. They can't survive without us, one said quickly. They rely on our trade, our alliances. But deep down, everyone knew the truth. Humanity had prepared for this moment long ago. They were too intelligent, too patient, too quiet. And now that patience had ended. In the far reaches of space, where human colonies once stood silent, something stirred. Massive stations hidden behind nebulae powered on for the first time in centuries. Shipyards long forgotten began to hum. Engines older than the council itself awoke. Deep under the ice of Europa, a command relay blinked to life, sending a signal into the void. In the darkness, the Terran fleet began to awaken. No one in the galaxy would see it yet, but they would soon feel it. Humanity had cut its ties to the council, but the council had not yet understood what that truly meant. The day Earth walked away was the day the stars began to tremble, for the galaxy had just lost its last peacekeeper and gained its greatest reckoning. The Galactic Council chamber felt strangely hollow after the humans left. For centuries, their presence had been small but steady, a quiet force that brought logic, calm, and balance to the endless squabbling of alien empires. Now their absence echoed louder than any explosion. The empty Terran seat remained untouched, its dark metal surface cold under the chamber's white lights. Some delegates avoided even looking at it. Others stared at it for long minutes, as if hoping it might somehow fill itself again. But it never did. The humans were gone, and the galaxy was starting to realize what that truly meant. In the hours following Earth's withdrawal, chaos swept through the council's systems. Communication relays failed. Trade networks stuttered. Key technologies, ones quietly maintained by human engineers, began to malfunction. Entire sectors went dark, their energy grids collapsing without warning. The council blamed technical glitches at first, but by the second day, even the speaker could no longer deny the truth. Humanity hadn't just walked away from the council, they had taken their knowledge with them. The power systems, the trade algorithms, the stabilizing codes that ran the council's economy, all had Terran roots. And without them, the galaxy was cracking. Across the stars, news spread fast. Merchants complained that their navigational data had vanished overnight. Starports that once ran smoothly now stood frozen, their docking systems unresponsive. In the great shipyards of Keyleth Prime, 1,000 vessels sat incomplete because their Terran-designed reactors refused to start. The workers stared helplessly at the screens flashing the same cold message in ancient Terran text: access denied. The galaxy had depended on humanity's intellect and patience for too long, never realizing just how deeply human innovation ran through every corner of civilization. On the third day, the first panic began. On the agricultural world of Kotha, crops began dying as the weather control satellites failed. Entire climates spun out of balance. On mining colonies, life support faltered. The council received hundreds of distress calls, begging for technical aid, for energy shipments, for leadership. But there were no humans left to answer. The same species they had mocked for their compassion was now the silent reason their world still breathed, and that silence was becoming suffocating. Meanwhile, far beyond the Council's reach, in the dark edges of the Sol system, humanity had not been idle. Deep beneath the surface of Mars, the Terran Confederation had gathered its leaders in the Red Hall, a circular chamber carved from iron and rock. At its center stood a glowing sphere, a living map of the galaxy, flickering with red and gold lights. Admiral Saren Vale, commander of the Terran Defense Fleet, stood with arms folded. Her expression was calm but cold, her eyes reflecting the light of 1,000 dying stars. "Status?" she asked quietly. An officer, young but hardened, spoke without hesitation. "All colonies accounted for. Civilian transports relocated to safe sectors. Defense stations are operational. The Council's supply chains have collapsed as planned." Vale nodded slowly. "And their fleets?" "Scattered," the officer replied. "They are panicking. They don't know whether to prepare for war or beg for negotiation." Another voice joined in, a deep, steady tone belonging to Commander Arlen Hayes. "Let them beg. They laughed when we pleaded for help. They ignored our cries. Now they will understand silence." The room went quiet for a moment. No one celebrated. There was no joy in vengeance here, only the grim satisfaction of balance being restored. Vale looked around at her officers. "The galaxy called us weak because we built bridges, not empires," she said. "They called us naive because we believed in peace. But peace cannot survive in a house built on arrogance. They forgot that kindness is not the same as weakness." As she spoke, miles above them, human fleets began to move. Hidden beneath the shadows of Jupiter's storms, massive ships emerged from cloaking fields. Each one was a fortress, sleek, black, and silent. Engines the size of cities powered on for the first time in centuries, their blue thrusters glowing like ghostly fire. The TNS Retribution, Earth's flagship, led the formation. Its sensors stretched far into alien space, tracking every Council fleet movement with surgical precision. Humanity didn't need to strike. They needed only to be seen. Back in the Council's Grand Chamber, the panic had turned into denial. "They can't survive alone," shouted the reptilian general who had mocked the humans days before. "Their population is too small. Their resources are limited. They will come crawling back." The speaker didn't answer. He stared at the empty Terran seat and felt a chill run through his crystalline frame. For the first time in memory, he wasn't sure the galaxy was in control. Then, without warning, the Council's main comms system flickered. Every display in the hall turned black. The room went silent as static filled the air. A few seconds later, a symbol appeared, a simple blue circle with a white line cutting through its center. The emblem of Earth. No voice followed. No demands. Only a single message, displayed in every known language of the galaxy. "Do not mistake silence for surrender." The screen went dark again. Panic erupted instantly. Delegates screamed orders, technicians scrambled to disconnect the network, but the message had already spread. Every starship, every datapad, every communication satellite now carried those words. It wasn't a threat, it was a promise. The Council chamber that once roared with arrogance now trembled with dread. Even the youngest species in the galaxy could feel it. Something was changing. Meanwhile, on Earth, the blue planet that had once been pitted as fragile now glowed with power. Giant orbital rings circled the planet, shining like halos in the night. From orbit, one could see the lights of a civilization reborn. United, purposeful, unstoppable. Humanity had been wounded, but their unity had become their strength. Every factory worked, every scientist built, every soldier trained. At the heart of it all, Admiral Vale stood at her command post, gazing out at the Earth she had sworn to protect. "They will come to us soon," Hayes said beside her. "They'll beg for trade, for help, for forgiveness." Vale's eyes never left the stars. "And we will decide if they deserve it." Far away, in the deep reaches of the galaxy, alien fleets watched from a distance, afraid to move closer. The void between stars had never seemed so wide, so cold. Because in that silence, They could feel it, a presence vast and patient, waiting for judgment. The humans had not vanished. They were watching. And the galaxy was about to learn that when Earth walks away, it doesn't disappear, it prepares. For the first time in living memory, the galaxy was quiet. The trade routes that once glowed like rivers of light across the stars now flickered and faded. The Galactic Council's great fleets stayed close to home, their captains terrified to venture near Terran space. Entire civilizations were holding their breath. What had once been the heart of unity, the promise of a galaxy built on cooperation, was now breaking apart piece by piece. It was astonishing how quickly the universe fell apart without humanity's guiding hand. On the glittering planet of Alpha Prime, the Council's emergency session dragged on into its third day. Every delegate shouted over the other. Some demanded war, others begged for peace. "We cannot allow Earth to defy us," roared the reptilian general from the Varan Empire, his scales flashing crimson. "They abandoned their place in the galaxy. They must be punished." An avian representative screeched in return, slamming her wings against the table. "Punished? For what? For leaving us to fix our own mess? You think they don't see what's happening? They are watching us tear ourselves apart." The Speaker of the Council, his crystalline form shimmering under the chamber lights, raised a trembling hand. "Order," he said weakly, though his voice carried no authority anymore. "We must remain calm. The humans will come back. They must. They depend on us for resources." A deep voice interrupted him from the shadows. "No, Speaker. We depend on them." The entire chamber turned. It was Lord Arcot, the oldest member of the Council, a being whose species had existed since before the Council itself. He stepped forward slowly, leaning on his staff. "Look around you," he said. "Half our energy grids have failed. Our ships drift without proper navigation. Our hospitals are out of Terran medicine. You speak of control, but the truth is that humans were never our subordinates. They were our foundation." The room fell silent. No one wanted to admit it, but they all knew he was right. For generations, humans had quietly kept the galaxy running, repairing systems, sharing technology, keeping peace where others wanted war. And now, all of that was gone. That same day, on the far edge of Terran space, deep in the darkness beyond Pluto's orbit, a human ship drifted silently through the void. The TNS Valkyrie was an observation vessel, one of many scattered throughout the galaxy to watch, record, and analyze. Inside, Captain Mara Ivius stood before a vast viewing window, staring out at the endless stars. Her reflection was pale, her eyes sharp and tired. "How long do you think it'll take them to realize?" she asked softly. Commander Arlen Hayes' voice came through the comms. "They already know. They just don't want to believe it." Mara smirked slightly, but her eyes remained on the void. "I keep waiting for them to send a fleet, to try to force us back." "They won't," Hayes replied. "They're afraid of what they can't see. And right now, they can't see us at all." She turned from the window and glanced at the holographic display hovering above the table. Dozens of glowing red lines marked the locations of alien fleets, council patrols, border sentries, scout vessels. Every movement, every transmission, was tracked by Terran intelligence networks. The humans had built a surveillance web so advanced that no one in the galaxy could hide from it. And yet, they themselves were invisible. In the vast command chambers under Earth's surface, the Nemesis core monitored it all. Thousands of quantum-linked processors worked in silence, processing data from every system. The core wasn't just a machine, it was the combined memory of humanity. An AI network connected to every Terran ship, base, and satellite. It had only one directive now: protect humanity at all costs. Council activity decreasing, reported one of the core's human overseers. Their fleets are pulling inward. Let them, came the eye's deep, calm response. Fear is an effective teacher. Back in the council chamber, desperation was setting in. The once arrogant delegates were beginning to whisper words no one had dared speak for centuries. "Maybe we were wrong," muttered a small aquatic diplomat, her voice trembling. "Maybe we pushed them too far." The Varin general slammed a clawed hand onto the table. You speak as though they are gods. They are just humans. Fragile, emotional, short-lived creatures. But his words were cut off as every light in the chamber flickered and died. The entire planet went dark. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the screens in the council hall flickered back to life, every one of them showing the same image. A blue planet surrounded by rings of light. Earth. A calm human voice spoke, steady and emotionless. You built your empire on our kindness. You mistook mercy for submission. You called us fragile. But we are still here. And we remember. The voice faded, and the screens went dark again. The council members sat frozen in their seats. Some were pale with fear, others trembling with guilt. The speaker tried to speak, but his crystalline body glowed faintly as if reacting to an unseen force. That wasn't possible, he whispered. They shouldn't have access to our system. They don't, said Lord Arkit grimly. They control it. Meanwhile, humanity continued to move in silence. In orbit above Mars, hundreds of massive ships began to assemble into formation. The Terran Defense Fleet was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Ships built from obsidian alloys, powered by antimatter cores, cloaked in energy fields that bent light itself. No signal left their perimeter. Every transmission was encoded so deeply that even their own systems couldn't read them twice. In one of the command bays aboard the flagship Retribution, Admiral Saren Vale stood before a glowing tactical map. Her voice was calm as she spoke to her captains. The Council has begun fracturing, she said. The Varin and Zealith factions are turning on each other. We will not intervene. A captain frowned. If we act now, we could take control of the entire galactic core. No one could stop us. Vale's expression didn't change. We're not conquerors, she said. We didn't leave the Council to rule them. We left to remind them what peace costs. Let them destroy themselves. We'll rebuild what remains. She turned away from the hologram and looked out into the void. Through the viewport, the stars shimmered faintly, each one a possible home, a possible threat. They called us weak, she murmured. They forgot that patience is the deadliest weapon. Back in Council space, civil unrest spread across entire star systems. Planets that had relied on Terran trade were starving. Worlds that once mocked humanity now begged for Terran aid. Piracy rose, borders closed, and every empire turned inward to survive. But every time they tried to reach Earth, every time they sent ships or probes or even messages, they were met with silence. And somewhere, deep in the void, something else was stirring. Strange readings appeared on long-range scanners, massive energy signatures near human space, power levels beyond anything recorded. The Council scientists were too afraid to investigate. It's them, one whispered. It has to be them. The galaxy was crumbling. Humanity had not fired a single shot, yet they had already won. Their silence had become their most powerful weapon. In the quiet halls beneath Geneva, the leaders of Earth watched the reports stream in. Admiral Vale looked at Hayes and said softly, "They're beginning to understand." Hayes nodded. "Good," he replied. "Because understanding comes before fear. And fear comes before change." Vale turned back toward the star map. Then let the galaxy change. Outside, the fleets of Earth drifted silently between the stars, forming invisible lines of power that stretched across the galaxy. Humanity had walked away from the Council, but their presence still shaped every corner of existence. The Council had thought they could control Earth, but now, the stars themselves seemed to bow. The galaxy no longer slept. Across 1,000 worlds, the fear of humanity's silence kept entire populations awake at night. Trade had collapsed, trust had shattered, and every empire that once mocked Earth now whispered its name in dread. For the first time in millennia, the Galactic Council, the same body that had ruled the stars with arrogance and deceit, stood powerless. Their fleets were fractured, their technology unstable, and their alliances broken. But what truly terrified them was not what humanity had done. It was what humanity was planning. In the center of the galaxy, the Council chamber burned with activity. Holographic projections flickered over the marble floors, displaying distress signals from all corners of known space. Worlds once loyal to the Council were revolting, demanding independence or protection. Dozens of alien voices shouted at once, each more desperate than the last. "Our cities are starving," cried one delegate. "Our satellites have gone dark," shouted another. This chaos began the day the humans left. The speaker slammed his staff against the floor, his crystalline body pulsing with light. "Silence," he roared, his voice trembling not from anger, but from fear. "We will not give them the satisfaction of watching us collapse. They have no power here." But the truth was already written across the stars. The Council's ships were running out of fuel. Their energy grids depended on Terran-designed reactors that only humans knew how to maintain. Their medicine, their transport systems, even their communication networks, all relied on Terran innovation. The galaxy's greatest empires were built on Earth's quiet generosity, and now, stripped of it, they were decaying like dying suns. Amid the shouting, a small holographic feed flickered to life in the center of the chamber. It was from an observation post on the edge of Terran space. The image was grainy, but the shape was unmistakable, a colossal shadow, drifting across the void. "It's another ship," said the technician, his voice trembling. "But it's not like any we've seen before." The chamber went silent as the image sharpened. The ship was enormous, larger than any Council vessel, its black hull covered in glowing blue veins of energy. It moved with perfect silence, no visible engines, no light. Then, as the camera zoomed closer, a faint symbol appeared on its surface, a single blue circle with a white line through the center. The emblem of Earth. Gasps filled the room. "Impossible!" shouted the Varin general. "They can't." But before he could finish, the feed cut to static. Every Council communication array across the core systems went dark at once. The lights in the chamber flickered and died, leaving only the sound of heavy breathing. And then, from every speaker, came a voice, soft, human, and calm. "You built your order on our silence," it said. "Now you will learn what silence costs." The voice faded, and the lights returned. No one spoke for several seconds. Even the speaker looked pale, his once perfect posture now slumped. Lord Arkit, the ancient alien who had warned them before, broke the stillness. "They are not attacking," he said quietly. "They are reminding us that they can." The speaker turned sharply toward him. "Then what do you suggest? We kneel before them?" Arkit's eyes dimmed. "Perhaps that is better than extinction." While the Council argued, the truth of humanity's plan was unfolding far away in the cold reaches of the Sol system. Underneath the icy crust of Europa, a command center had come alive for the first time in centuries. Walls of blue light illuminated vast tunnels filled with engineers, soldiers, and scientists. At the center of it all stood Admiral Saren Vale, flanked by Commander Arlen Hayes and the AI projection of the Nemesis Corps. "The message was delivered," said Hayes. "Their panic is spreading. Half the Council fleets have gone into hiding." Vale studied the holographic display of the galaxy. Dozens of red markers, Council systems, blinked like dying stars. "And the colonies?" she asked. "Secure," Hayes replied. "Every Terran world is under defense shield. The shipyards on Titan are fully operational. The TNS Retribution and Eternity fleets await deployment." The Nemesis Corps' voice filled the chamber, deep and smooth. "The Council has underestimated your patience, Admiral. Fear grows faster than war." Vale nodded. "Good. Let them fear." She turned toward the window that showed the dark horizon of Jupiter. "But we won't destroy them. We'll let their fear do that for us." Hayes frowned slightly. "You think they'll turn on each other?" "They already are," Vale said softly. "Arrogance is a disease, Commander, and fear is its cure." For the next several weeks, the galaxy unraveled exactly as she predicted. The Zealith Empire accused the Varin of secretly allying with Earth. The Kryth Confederacy began purging its colonies, fearing Terran infiltration. Trade alliances shattered, and entire fleets fired on one another in paranoia. Humanity didn't lift a single weapon. Yet half the galaxy was burning. Still, the Council refused to believe it was over. In desperation, they gathered what remained of their fleets, 2,000 warships under a unified command. It was the largest military force ever assembled since the ancient wars. "We will remind Earth who rules the stars," the speaker declared, his voice echoing across the chamber. "We will march to their system and demand submission." The Council's armies prepared for war. Massive dreadnoughts left their home systems, forming a glittering armada that stretched across the void. They moved toward the Sol system with confidence, believing numbers alone would bring victory. But what awaited them was not an army, it was a lesson. As the fleet entered the outskirts of Terran space, every star seemed to dim. One by one, their navigation systems began to fail. Engines flickered. Communication links dropped. "Report!" shouted the Varan general aboard the flagship. "What's happening?" The technician's voice cracked. "Sir, all sensors are dead. We're being jammed on every frequency." And then they saw it. Out of the darkness, hundreds of enormous ships appeared. Sleek, black, silent. The Terran fleet. No transmissions, no warnings, just presence. The alien armada prepared to fire, but their weapons refused to respond. Their systems had been hacked before they even arrived. From the human flagship TNS Retribution, Admiral Vale watched calmly. "Do not engage," she ordered. "Transmit the message." Across the galaxy, every screen, every channel, every starport flickered to life again. This time showing a live feed of the Council's fleet, helpless and surrounded. A voice spoke through the broadcast. "For centuries, we built your roads, healed your sick, and guarded your skies. You repaid us with mockery and betrayal. You thought peace made us weak. You were wrong." The alien crews stared in silence as the Terran ships opened fire, not with weapons, but with light. A blinding flash filled the void, and when it cleared, the Council's fleet was gone. Not destroyed, transported. Their ships had been relocated to the farthest edge of the galaxy, powerless, adrift among uncharted stars. Vale turned away from the screen. "Send the coordinates to the Council," she said quietly. "Let them see where arrogance leads." Hayes looked at her, astonished. "You spared them." She met his gaze. "No. We judged them. Now they can decide whether to rebuild or fade." Back in the Council chamber, the surviving delegates stared at the holographic transmission of their lost fleet. No one spoke. The speaker finally whispered, "What are they?" Lord Arcot closed his eyes. "They are what we made them." And in the darkness of the void, as the Terran ships vanished into the shadows once more, the stars themselves seemed to pulse, like a warning or perhaps a heartbeat. The galaxy had learned the truth at last. When Earth cuts its ties, the universe trembles not from anger, but from the weight of its own guilt. The galaxy had not seen peace since the day Earth walked away. Entire star systems that once glittered like jewels were now silent, their skies filled with tension and fear. The Council's Grand Alliance, once called the symbol of unity, was a fading relic, rotting from within. What humanity had built for centuries was falling apart in months. But this time, humanity wasn't the one losing control. The alien races who had mocked Earth's patience were now trapped in a nightmare of their own making, one where every shadow in the stars looked like a Terran warship waiting to strike. The Council's surviving leaders gathered once more on Alpha Prime, a planet now choked with anxiety and secrecy. Half the chamber was empty. Several empires had already withdrawn or collapsed under rebellion. The speaker looked older, his once golden armor dulled and cracked. "This is unsustainable," he said, his voice cracking with exhaustion. "We can't keep living like this. Trade is gone, communication is gone, and our fleets are terrified of ghosts." Lord Arcot, the oldest member of the Council, leaned forward on his staff. His eyes glowed dimly under the faint light. "They are not ghosts," he said quietly. "They are reminders. Every world that burned because of our pride is a voice in the dark. The humans warned us long before this day came." The reptilian general, always eager for violence, slammed his fist on the table. Enough of your riddles. They are a threat. We must strike before they rebuild further. If we wait any longer, they'll rule the stars. Rule the stars. Arkit whispered. They already do. At that, the chamber fell silent. Meanwhile, far away on the other side of the galaxy, deep within the Sol system, humanity's fleets moved like shadows across the void. They didn't broadcast their presence. They didn't boast of power. They simply worked, repairing, building, expanding. The solar defense rings around Earth glowed faintly in the darkness, while Mars and Titan pulsed with life as shipyards thrummed with energy. It was a sight that would have terrified any outsider. Humanity had done the impossible. United every world under one banner, one purpose, one unbreakable will. Inside the command center aboard the TNS Eternity, Admiral Seren Vale stood before a vast star map showing the galaxy fractured into hundreds of isolated systems. Each flickering red mark represented a planet still loyal to the Galactic Council, or what remained of it. Commander Arlen Hayes approached from behind, his steps steady but heavy. The Council is losing control faster than predicted, he said. They've turned on one another. The Varan fleet attacked the KRYTH colonies yesterday. Over 100 million dead. Vale's eyes remained fixed on the hologram. And did humanity lift a finger? No, Hayes replied softly. Good, she said. They must learn that their fear isn't of us, it's of themselves. We didn't break the galaxy. We simply stopped holding it together. Hayes hesitated, then asked, and if they come for us again? They won't, Vale answered. Not yet. They know what happens when they cross that line. Still, the Admiral knew something was coming. Power doesn't die quietly. It claws, it resists, it makes one last desperate attempt to survive. And that attempt was about to begin. In a secret shipyard orbiting a dying star, the Council's last hope was being forged. A fleet, smaller than before, but built from desperation, was being prepared. Thousands of alien engineers worked in silence, building massive vessels equipped with new weapons, powered by stolen human designs. They called it Operation Purity. Their goal was simple: to destroy Earth once and for all. The Speaker of the Council watched from the command deck of his flagship as the fleet assembled. We have no choice, he told his generals. If we don't end them, they will erase us. The galaxy must be free of their shadow. But what they didn't know was that humanity already knew. At that same moment, aboard the Retribution, humanity's most advanced warship, the Nemesis Corps' holographic projection flickered to life. Its deep, serene voice filled the chamber. Admiral Vale, enemy fleet detected in Sector 47. Estimated time to Sol border, 27 hours. Vale didn't react. Activate the Obsidian Protocol, she said. Hayes blinked. You're serious? That will expose our position. Vale looked at him. They're coming for us anyway. Let them see what they've awakened. The Nemesis Corps' lights pulsed. Confirmed. Obsidian Protocol engaged. All across the Sol system, the stars seemed to dim as power flowed into humanity's defenses. Massive energy fields rose from Earth's orbit, glowing faintly blue. The orbital rings began to shift, forming a massive grid around the planet. On Mars, weapons long dormant came alive, their barrels pointing toward the outer systems. When the Council's fleet finally arrived, they expected chaos. Instead, they found silence. No response, no communication. Just the quiet hum of distant energy. Their scanners went wild. Every attempt to map human defenses failed. Then, suddenly, a voice cut through every frequency. This is Earth Command, it said calmly. You have entered restricted space. Leave, or be unmade. The speaker laughed bitterly. You think we fear your words? He shouted. Fire all weapons. The command echoed across the fleet. Thousands of plasma cannons ignited, missiles locked on target, and the void lit up with burning light. But before a single shot reached its destination, everything stopped. The weapons froze mid-flight, engines failed, and every system on every ship went black. The crews screamed as their consoles died, their ships drifting helplessly. From Earth's orbit, Admiral Vale watched the Council's armada crumble in silence. "Power them down," she ordered. "Completely." The Nemesis Corps' voice was almost gentle. "Confirmed." Within seconds, the enemy fleet was dead in space. Not destroyed, simply erased. Every weapon disabled, every system offline. Then, one by one, human ships appeared among them, black and silent as shadows. Their hulls bore no markings, only the faint glow of Terran blue lights. Vale opened a channel. "You came seeking war," she said quietly. "What you've found is truth. The age of the Council is over." The speaker tried to speak, but his voice broke. "What are you?" Vale's expression didn't change. "What we've always been. The ones who gave you peace, and the ones who will take it back." The channel cut. The alien crews watched helplessly as their ships began to drift backward, pulled by an invisible force. The Terran fleet surrounded them, and with a final pulse of light, the enemy ships were gone, transported to the farthest edge of the galaxy, far from any habitable world. The stars in that region dimmed, as if even the light refused to follow them. Back on Earth, Vale stood before the command window, staring at the dark expanse of space. "It's done," Hayes said quietly. "No," she replied. "It's only beginning." "What do you mean?" "They will rebuild," she said. "They always do. But they will rebuild knowing they are no longer gods. They are just survivors now, like we once were." Hayes looked at her, then at the stars. "And what about us?" Vale's eyes softened. "We guard. We remember. We watch." Outside, the stars shimmered faintly. The galaxy was forever changed. Humanity had not conquered, had not enslaved, had not destroyed, but they had judged. And that judgment would echo for generations. Far beyond the Sol system, among the drifting remains of the Council's broken fleet, one alien officer looked out into the void and whispered, "They didn't destroy us, they spared us." And somewhere, hidden within the silence between stars, a Terran voice answered through the static, calm and unyielding. "Be grateful. The next time, mercy may not follow." The galaxy was quiet again, but it was not the silence of peace, it was the silence of fear. After the Council's last fleet vanished into the far reaches of uncharted space, every surviving civilization fell into stunned disbelief. No one dared to speak Earth's name aloud anymore. To many, it had become a myth, a ghost story whispered in hushed tones among soldiers and children. Yet the truth was far worse. Earth was not gone. It was awake, and it was watching. In the days that followed, fragments of the vanished fleet drifted back through the void. Empty ships, powerless, their crews vanished or frozen mid-motion as though time itself had stopped. No weapons, no damage, just emptiness. The galaxy's scientists examined them and found traces of unknown energy woven into their systems, unlike anything in known physics. It was power beyond understanding, controlled perfectly, precisely, without cruelty. Proof that humanity had evolved far past what the Council ever imagined. The message was clear. They could have destroyed the fleet, but they didn't. They wanted the galaxy to understand that mercy from humanity was no longer a sign of weakness. It was a warning. Meanwhile, on the far side of the solar system, aboard the TNS Eternity, Admiral Saren Vale stood on the observation deck, watching Earth through the glass. The planet glowed softly beneath its defense rings, wrapped in layers of orbital stations and satellite networks that shimmered like halos. "They still think they can rebuild," said Commander Arlen Hayes, stepping up beside her. His reflection looked pale in the window's light. "The Council's remnants are gathering on Varin Prime. They're forming something new." Vale didn't look away from the Earth. "A new council?" she asked quietly. Hayes nodded. "They're calling it the Coalition of Order. Their message is simple: unite to survive humanity." Vale smiled faintly, though there was no joy in it. Order built on fear never lasts. We learned that once. Now they will, too. Hayes hesitated, then asked, "Should we act? Strike before they regroup?" "No," Vale said, her voice calm and steady. "Let them build. Let them feel strong again. They will show us who still remembers humility and who deserves correction. The words hung in the air, cold and sharp. Humanity had changed. The kindness that once defined them was still there, but it was buried beneath layers of control, patience, and power. They were not the fragile diplomats of old. They were watchers now, guardians of a balance the galaxy had forgotten. Far beyond Sol, in a quiet sector of space where dying suns flickered weakly, the remnants of the Galactic Council met in secret. The new chamber was dark and smaller than before, carved into the heart of an asteroid. Gone was the gold and glory of the old hall. Now, only desperation remained. The Varan general, scarred and weary, slammed his hand on the table. We can't live like this. Every time we launch a ship, they know. Every whisper, every meeting, they're listening. A thin, feathered diplomat from the KRYTH leaned forward. Then stop whispering, she said bitterly. Maybe they'll forget about you. Forget, the general roared. They don't forget. That's the problem. An older alien, eyes dim with age, spoke softly from the end of the table. Maybe that's the point. Maybe they're waiting for us to admit what we did. To take responsibility. The Varan general hissed. Responsibility? For what? For treating them as what they were, lesser. No, the elder replied. For forgetting that they were the ones who made us greater. The room fell silent. Even the air seemed to grow heavier. Everyone there knew the truth. They had depended on humans for centuries, exploited their inventions, their labor, their compassion. And when humanity finally asked for help, the galaxy laughed. Outside the chamber, the stars pulsed faintly. The universe itself seemed to listen to their guilt. Meanwhile, back in human space, things were far different. The Terran Confederation was thriving. Cities glowed on Mars, oceans sparkled again on Earth, and orbital factories spun silently across the sky. Humanity had become something far beyond its old self, a civilization unified by purpose, discipline, and quiet strength. Every citizen knew the story, how the galaxy turned its back on Earth, and how Earth had answered with silence. That silence had become sacred. Children were taught not to fear war, but to fear arrogance, the arrogance that had once destroyed them and nearly destroyed the stars. Admiral Vale walked the corridors of the Eternity, passing rows of soldiers in dark gray uniforms. Their faces were calm, emotionless, trained to serve a cause that was no longer about revenge but about balance. The hum of the engines filled the air, soft and steady like a heartbeat. She entered the central command chamber, where the Nemesis core awaited her, its holographic form flickering above the control table. Status, she asked. All systems nominal, the core replied in its smooth, deep voice. Observation fleets remain cloaked. No new hostile activity detected. The Coalition of Order is attempting to contact us through coded channels. Decode them, Vale said. The core paused. Their message is simple. We surrender. Hayes, who stood beside her, frowned. They finally broke. Vale's expression didn't change. No, they're trying to survive. There's a difference. The core's light dimmed slightly. Do we respond? Not yet, she said. Let them wait. Let the silence remind them of who they're speaking to. Across the galaxy, the Coalition's leaders waited in vain for a reply. Days turned into weeks. Ships sat idle in orbit, their crews restless. Every hour without a response chipped away at their confidence. Then, one night, every screen across their fleet flickered on. The image that appeared was unmistakable. Earth. Blue, shining, beautiful. A calm human voice spoke through the static. You seek peace now. Do you remember when we did? The room fell silent. The voice continued, steady and low. We begged. You ignored. We tried mercy. You mocked. Now you will learn that peace is not granted, it is earned. The image faded, replaced by the symbol of Earth. A single blue circle divided by a white line. And then, once again, nothing. On Earth, Admiral Vale stood before her officers in the Central Command Hall. They've made contact, Hayes said. I know, Vale replied. And they will again. What do we do when they do? He asked. She looked at him, her eyes calm but distant. We listen. And if they've truly changed, we forgive. Hayes nodded slowly, though he didn't entirely believe it. And if they haven't? Then the galaxy will hear our silence once more. The words echoed through the chamber, heavy and final. Outside the window, the stars gleamed like diamonds against the black. The fleet drifted in perfect formation, engines dimmed, weapons cold. Humanity had achieved something no empire ever had, not domination, but control without violence, fear without hatred. Yet even as they watched, deep in the void, something moved. The Nemesis core detected a signal beyond the galactic rim, a frequency older than anything in known records. It pulsed like a heartbeat, slow and steady. Admiral, the core said, we have detected something. Vale turned. Define something. Unknown origin. Not Council. Not Terran. It predates us both. Hayes frowned. Another civilization. The core paused. Or what came before civilizations. Vale stared into the endless black, her reflection framed by starlight. For the first time in years, there was uncertainty in her eyes. Then humanity isn't done yet, she said softly. The stars flickered faintly, as though listening. Humanity had brought judgment once, but now, something greater was stirring beyond the edge of the known universe. And this time, even the Terran fleet might have to remember what it meant to fear.